there's something going on in their life that's allowing them to use that as an obstacle, not to push further, not to do what they need to do, because it's easier to make an excuse for why you have shortcomings than it is to go, oh, what are they doing that I could do different in my life? So the people that get it, the ones that don't. And I've realized,
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Deep MCs, the podcast that seeks to push meaningful conversation to a whole new level. Whether it's for your entertainment or your personal growth, we appreciate you being here today. And now, on to the show. What's going on, Deep MCs? This is Shepard riding solo today, but today we have something very special guests for you. We have Dan Wise, RDAP Dan. You can find him on YouTube, but Dan, thanks for joining us, man. How are you doing today?
Man, I am so excited to be here. Dave, I can't be the only one. Your voice is just captivating. It's making me all excited over here just to hear the voice. Let's do it. I'm so excited.
No, this is going to be a fun one, man. So I was perusing the web as I normally do. I spend a lot of time on YouTube, right? And I came across some of your videos. And as I was watching, I was like, dude, this guy, he's an interesting man. He has a lot of stories behind him. And there was a lot to you that I think for me, I guess whenever I watch a video, I watch it for more than its content, right? Because you can tell a lot about a person in their mannerisms and the way they carry themselves and how they interact with their fan base. You do a lot of live stuff as well. And there was just so much there. Dude, you're an interesting guy. And I guess, can you tell my listeners here, what is it that you do?
Sure. And thank you for those awesome, kind words, Shepard. So aside from having a YouTube channel, I don't really call myself a YouTuber. YouTube is my platform where I get my message and my story out there to find the individuals that need my help. So 2011, just to kind of go back a little bit, because we're in 2022 right now, for those of you that don't remember. 2011, I worked for a doctor's office that was out of Savannah, Georgia. We're right outside of the skirts of Savannah, Garden City, basically right off of I-95. I lived in South Florida still. I had a little part-time house that the company that I worked for, the doctor office, that they rented for me in Savannah, Georgia. And the whole objective of this doctor's office was a pain clinic, a pill mill. For those people that don't know what those are, it's basically individuals that are, seeking drugs. Maybe they're addicted to the drugs. Maybe they really do got some pain, and maybe over a course of time they became addicted to the drugs. But we're talking opioids like your oxys, things like that. Some pretty strong drugs, synthetic heroin, basically. I worked in a call center right prior to that. I had my own little call center doing credit repair business. And the office that I had my space in for the call center, there was another company in that same office that we kind of, separated with some dividers, and they had their own little thing. I had my thing, but the guys that were running that were also friends with the person that was financing the whole building, the guy that kind of owned the building. And I heard them talking about how they were going to open this doctor's office, and there was all this money to be made. And I'm just kind of hearing dollar signs left and right. My credit repair company wasn't really doing much at all, other than, making just enough to pay the guys and really not enough to pay myself even. Right. Child support was going big time in the rears. I was just not catching up on my bills. It was just getting worse and worse. At this point, I hadn't done drugs really in my life. I hadn't really been a drinker. And when I heard them talking about this, I was like, man, how do I get in on all this money that they're talking about? Not knowing anything about pain clinics. So I started kind of putting my feelers out there. And I think they saw the ability to take advantage in some ways because of my naiveness, but they also said, all right, Dan seems like he's responsible, shows up on time, doesn't have a drug addiction. We're going to be opening a clinic where potentially we're going to be prescribing medication and selling pills out of. So we want somebody that's not going to steal from us, but can also deal with people. Offered me this great idea of coming down, moving to Savannah, Georgia, $10,000 a month, which at the time sounded fucking fantastic. I forgot what I cuss on this show.
You can let it all rip, man.
But yeah, so I was like, fuck, 10 grand a month. Are you kidding me? That would change my life. No
Huge.
expenses. I just get paid 10 grand. They're going to pay my condo in South Florida. They were also going to pay my living expenses in Savannah, Georgia. They were going to let me bring my girlfriend, give her a job. So we didn't have to have any
Right.
issues there, and hire my best friend. So everybody kind of was like, oh, this is awesome. We get
So
to
you're
kind of
living the
truck over.
dream, bro.
I thought I was. So took advantage of this and ended up getting a job at the pain clinic. I was the office manager, which I've never worked in a medical facility in my entire life. So when they offered me the job of office manager, I said, okay, I'm down for the 10 grand, but when do I get trained? Because I don't know day one of what I do in a doctor's office. And they said, don't worry, we'll train you on site. We've got nurses that are going to be working there. We'll teach you as we go. And it really wasn't rocket science, but it became very clear very quickly once I really started kind of getting into it that most of the patients that were driving down to see this doctor, most of them were coming from like Kentucky and Ohio and really far away. And the average patient that was coming to see us normally would drive to Florida to one of the various pain clinics in Florida. And their whole idea was put one in Georgia that was closer so they wouldn't have to drive as far. So what, and they did some ridiculous marketing tactics that they employed me and my specialties, because I've always considered myself a pretty good marketing guy and good with people and kind of selling myself.
Right.
But their marketing tactics were a little weird. So they would have us set up at other pain clinics in Florida, at hotels. We would get a hotel like across from the pain clinic where we'd have a visual, and would be one guy in the hotel with binoculars. There'd be another guy in the car on the ground. And when we would see a car from out of state pull into this pain clinic, we would wait and watch for that person to get back in the car after they'd go and have their visit. And while they were leaving, they would say, Dan, all right, it's the little minivan and whatever, go flag them down. So I would chase this person down in the car, flag them down. They probably thought I was a police officer at this point.
Right.
Jump out of the car and say, hey, I saw you guys drove all the way from Kentucky to go to this doctor on your next visit. Why don't you come and stop off here? We'll give you a free visit. So basically we were like poaching their clients, which was shady enough in itself. And but it was fun. I'm not going to lie. It was like chasing people down. It kind of felt like, it's something to do. But day one, when we opened the pain clinic, we had a pretty decent amount of clients outside waiting. And I started seeing all these people getting out of the cars with like no shoes, and there was like little kids looked like they weren't really being taken care of. And I was like, what's really going on here? And this is when I really started to learn the pandemic and the opioid abuse, and didn't feel great about it, but I justified it and said, well, the doctor's the one writing the prescriptions. It's nothing I can do about that. They're going to get it somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Fast forward. Got indicted. Basically, they came in and said the doctor was writing prescriptions for no legitimate purpose. They said the rest of us that worked there should have known this. We did, at least I did. I can't say for everybody else. I was definitely aware something was going on. I just didn't think it really mattered for me, but ultimately got federally indicted. And this was 2011, fought my case from 2011 until the beginning of 2014 was where things kind of took a turn, where I had to take a plea deal. Everybody on my case, including the doctors, including the people that owned it, everybody above me, below me. I get a call about 2 weeks before trial, and my attorney says, I think we got to switch our game plan. I said, what do you mean? Everybody took a plea deal on this case. You're the last person, and you already turned down the plea deal they offered you. So the government is not super excited to work with you. However, if you go to trial, one of the doctors did decide to go to trial.
Right.
They said, you're going to be in trial with the doctor and everybody else that took a plea deal on this case, which was like 11 people. They all agreed. Part of their plea agreement is whoever goes to trial, they have to testify against and say that person knew what was going on from day one and they were part of it. And I basically had to go beg and plead to the government to put my plea deal back on the table, because I was facing at that time about up to 20 years or more if I was found guilty on all counts, which was a 52 count indictment. And it just rocked my world, bro, from 2011 to 2014, knowing that prison was a strong possibility and not knowing anything about prison other than what I've seen on TV was terrifying to me, because I'm just picturing like Oz and Locked Up Abroad and getting shanked and all of these just fucking horrible things. How am I going to tell my small children that I'm going to prison? So, and I wasn't taking responsibility. I was blaming the government just out to get me. I don't have enough money to fight this. And I went from a free attorney to a paid attorney and didn't make a difference. Ultimately got sentenced to 42 months federal prison. My girlfriend, who's still my girlfriend to this day, she got sentenced to 13 months as I got her a job as an office. She was basically like the receptionist.
Right, right.
And yeah, I took her in to turn her into prison about a month before me. So it was like August of 2014 that she was self-surrendering. So in the federal prison, for people that don't really understand, and I'm sure it's similar in the state too.
Yeah,
If you have a non-violent crime or you're like a first-time non-violent offender, when you're out on bond or pre-trial, and when you go to your sentencing, a lot of the judge won't remand you at sentencing because you've been out this entire time. So they'll give you the ability to get sentenced. And then within like 2 or 3 months, you'll find out where you're going and you self-surrender to the actual prison. So my girlfriend self-surrendered before me. So I drove her to prison, Coleman Federal Prison Camp. It's up by Ocala in Florida. And it's the same prison I was going to go to, just a different level of security. Right. So driving her there, like seeing this, and it was so surreal. Like I can't believe I'm driving my girlfriend to prison right now for a 13-month prison sentence, something I got her involved in. It was just horrible. Yeah, questions about that so far? Because I can just talk about this stuff all day long.
No, man, you're good. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I see, and I mean, obviously, my listeners don't know much about you. I know a little bit more, so I'm hearing a lot of these things. But first, it's interesting, and one of the things that was drawing me to you is I can understand the Florida aspect, right? So for my listeners, they don't know, like I lived in Florida for quite some time. Not quite some time, say about 8, almost 9 years, right? And so yeah, I do know it well, especially South Florida. But I was mainly stationed in the Tampa Bay, Clearwater, St. Pete, Bradenton, Sarasota, yeah, all over there. But yeah, no, the pill mills are no joke. But you see a lot of down there, right? You see the pill mills, you see the plastic surgery, you see the gold refinery, you see all of those things, and it's always interesting, right? Because there's a lot of money. And you want some of that because the money there. I guess people view Florida as being this beautiful place, and it's great to visit. It's this different thing to live, right? It's a little different, right? Especially if you're not in the tourism field. There's not a whole lot of legitimate money injection, if you will.
We call it the days are sunny and the people are shady.
Yeah, no, 100%. People just don't get that. So I could see, the allure, of having these people come to you and offer that. I mean, I've got offered similar types of situations when I was living in Florida. People would offer me to drive packages up the East Coast and little things like that, right? And thank God I never bit, because I had I've had my fair share of handcuffs. I don't need any more. You
might have got to know me a little earlier. You might have been
right?
A client.
Exactly. But yeah, no, man. I mean, please keep going. We're about to get to you here, right? You're about to get yourself.
I'll speed through the rest of it.
No, you're good, man.
So self-surrendered Shelly up there, brought her to Coleman to the camp, and we weren't sure which one was the camp, because there's a camp, there's a low, there's a medium, and there's 2 penitentiaries. So Coleman Federal Prison is the largest prison facility for the BOP, for the Bureau of Prisons. It's a large, huge facility.
Right.
So we drove to the wrong one at first, and they came out and they're like, no, you got to go back over there. But going to the wrong one, you're seeing like the towers and the barbed wire. And it's like, oh my fucking God, this is where I'm going to be going. And
yeah, for sure.
And we got there early intentionally, so we knew we were going. So once we found out where it was, then we went and found like a little bar. Shelly wanted to have a couple drinks before she turned herself in. Can't blame her. So we went, and Shelly, actually got pretty wasted. She was drinking vodka and sodas and just obliterated.
Yeah.
Brought her to prison, hugged, and off she went. I drove back home. The drive home was real surreal. It was real lonely because I knew I was going to be going next and somebody else would be driving me up there. And it's just a really weird feeling, like turning yourself into prison. We didn't know where the relationship would go. Her sentence was 13 months. My sentence was 42 months. So there's a big discrepancy there in the amount of time. This is before I knew about how to get time off and all that good stuff. As I got closer to my own surrender date, I self-surrendered September 23rd. I want to say it was September 20th. It was like 3 days before I turned myself in. I posted a video on YouTube, and that's kind of how my channel launched. I posted a video on YouTube 3 days prior, and I said, my name's Dan. I'm going to prison for 42 months. I really didn't know what to talk about. Wasn't trying to start a YouTube channel, just kind of sharing the information of what I went through. And then the day came to self-surrender. A good buddy of mine, Matt, was like, hey man, you really should make a make a spectacle out of this. Like do something that the prison's not expecting. And I'm just like, what can I do that they haven't seen before? And he's sort of brainstorming. He's like, why don't we stop at Party City? It's around Halloween time. Why don't we stop at Party City and you buy a prison costume, a black and white pinstripe prison costume, and wear that in? And I'm like, are you, dude, I'm going to get shot. He's like, nah, nobody wears those actual costumes in prison. They're going to know, you're not a real inmate. So somehow he convinces me. And the night before I turn myself in, my friends are helping me pack up my stuff. And one of them is trying to get me to do Molly because I'd never done it before. And I was like, no, dude, I don't want to. And he felt like he knew what was best for me. So he dropped one into my beer, into my Yingling. And about 30 minutes later, I guess I was feeling great. And he's like, how are you feeling? I was like, actually, I feel really good. And then he hit me. I'm like, dude, what did you give me? And he told me it was a Molly. Felt fantastic that entire night. But the next day came time to drive, 3.5 hours to Coleman. And I'm just devastated and destroyed, and serotonin's gone. And I'm wearing this prison costume, and two of my friends are driving. And as we're getting closer and closer, I was like, dude, I don't think I can wear this in there. It's like, come on, man. You told everybody you were going to do it. I'm like, everybody? Who the fuck's everybody? It's like, it's one of you guys and like 3 people that watched on YouTube. So anyway, I decide, I get out of the car, I'm wearing this prison costume, and I'm walking up to the self-surrender area. It's all R&D of the low security Coleman. And as I'm walking up, there's a perimeter truck that drives the perimeter of the prison with a shotgun. He's just making sure no one's like escaping or contraband coming in. And he rides up to me and he's like, can I help you? I said, yeah, I'm here to self-surrender. And he goes, you're going to go in dressed like that? I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, well, he's right over there. Good luck, man. So I don't know if he radioed ahead or what, but I go and press the buzzer for them to come in. So they come out, they're real nice. And they're like, hey, come on in, give them my ID. And it's kind of like, almost like a little hotel. Like you're at the desk, there's a guy behind the desk. And he's like, well, have a seat right here. So my friends are sitting there taking pictures and stuff, kind of like incognito. And off in the distance, it was like something in a movie. I just see these 3 giant men walking towards me. It's like slow motion, and they're just giants. And I was like, this doesn't look good. So as they get closer and closer, I'm like, all right, I've gone this far. So as they get about like arm's length from me, I stand up and I'm like, you got me, coppers. And I put my arms out in front of me. Man, they snatched me up so fast, and they ripped the clothes, like literally they were just gone off my body and just gone. And he gets in my ears. You think this is a fucking joke? You think we're your friends? And brought me in the back, put me in a little holding cell, tested me for, I guess maybe they test everybody, but I tested positive for THC, which I had been smoking weed, and tested positive for meth. Evidently, that must have been mixed in the Molly. Which I'd never done meth in my life. So I was like, oh my God. So they let me sit there for a few hours. Then they dressed me out, basically strip searched me, the whole thing, cough and all that. And they sent me off into the compound, and I got to the compound, and, that's really when my prison journey started. Prison wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. It was a low security, half-mile tracks. Audio still good?
Yeah, no, you're great.
Okay.
Man.
Half-mile track, basketball, football, my biggest thing at that point, I was like, man, 42 months. And then I found out about RDAP, the Residential Drug Abuse Program, which if you qualify for that, which apparently I did because I had been smoking marijuana for, a majority of my life, but just little bits here and there. And that allowed me to qualify for the program, which can knock a year off your sentence if you successfully complete the program, which I did. And, you can ask me what you want about that, but that's kind of how I got into being a prison consultant. Was after I ended up only serving 13 months out of the 42 months in prison. I got a year off. I got my good time. So you serve 85% of your fed time. And then I got a year off for the program. And then they gave me 11 months federal halfway house, which was still kind of torture in itself. But 13 months in prison, 11 months in a federal halfway house. And a portion of that 11 months was on an ankle monitor, actually at home. But it was when I got to the halfway house, I checked my emails, and I saw all of these email responses, YouTube response. And I'm like, what is this? I forgot all about that video I posted before I went. And the video was just people getting ready to go in for the first time that had a lot of the same questions I did. Like, what was it like? What do you wish you had done different? What did you tell your kids? Just all the general fears. Right. So while I was in the halfway house, I had a little job at this office, and on my free time, I would make response videos to the questions, telling them what I'd done different, how I wish I'd taken more accountability, because RDAP really did, change my entire life. The program had very little to do about drugs and alcohol. It was more of cognitive decisions, focusing on consequences, identifying red flags, the things that I just turned a blind eye to.
Right.
And before I know it, comments started coming back, and I started getting emails and questions from criminal defense attorneys that wanted to know if they could use me to work with their pretrial clients that were going to be going to help work with them to answer some of the questions that they didn't answer. So it started off as a hobby where I'd get like a $50 donation here or there, to where I identified this as a potential way to work with these individuals, but also find a way to financially gain from it without doing anything shady. And we ended up hiring like a chemical dependency professional. We hired a life coach. We hired an ex-attorney to work with us. We hired some professional writers, and we were able to develop a program that we put people in from the time they get in trouble until the time they get out of prison. And it just kind of skyrocketed out of control in a good way, where I was spending no money for advertising because everything was coming from my YouTube channel. It was all people finding me there and hiring me through that. So we went from getting $50 donations to, an average client that works with us now is going to pay somewhere between minimum like $3,500 up to about $7,500 for the service. But it's not like how to prepare and protect yourself for prison. It's what to do before, how you can shorten your sentence, what to say to your kids, mental health, substance abuse. So there's a lot that goes into it.
No, for sure. 100%, man. And what you're doing for the people is huge. I mean, we'll definitely link off to your website there, so people that are looking or in the similar situation can definitely find you. I did have a question though, because it's always interesting, right? So everything that you've gone through in life, you've actually had that life-changing experience, right? So I don't know of Dan Wise prior to going in, right? I only know, the Dan Wise that's after, right? The after effects of it, man. And for me, it's just interesting to see you as yourself as a person, and watching your videos and following your story, and just seeing this is going to sound bad. And I'm going to put myself out here, right? And I have I don't know how you'd put this. I have a couple episodes and stuff that we've done, and things coming out about like stereotyping and that type of thing, right? And if I was to hear about you, if I was to tell a story of the things about you that I've heard from your stories, from your YouTubes, and I just go to someone else, right? Mm-hmm. And I say, hey, I'm going to interview this Dan Wise. Not interview. I met this Dan Wise guy, right? Like this white guy from Florida. He's a Republican. He voted for Donald Trump. He's been in jail, right? And they're going to have this idea in their head of what this person is, right?
Absolutely.
But the Dan Wise that's in front, intelligent as fuck, carries himself so well, so humble, owns his shit. Like, dude, like does that make sense, right? Like, you are not what people would say, like if they just heard these highlights, these taglines, these whatevers. And it's so refreshing to be able to have people like that. And I mean, there's more people out there that are like you, but you yourself, man, I mean, you're a great guy. And for everybody out there that is going through this, I mean, for someone like you to be there to provide that service, that's huge, man. So, I mean, I commend you on that. And, you're a guy that got dealt a bad hand. You're just trying to do what you could do for your family. And like to see you now and to see how you've turned that around and you've come back from that. I mean, it speaks volumes to who you are as a person, and what you do and what you care about. So, and take that for what it's worth. I don't know,
I will prior to all of this, I really was a pretty big piece of shit. I was entitled. I thought everything was owed to me. White privilege is anybody that says white privilege is not a real thing. I'm not going to say they're in denial. I'm going to say that they don't really understand what it means, or they don't understand what systemic racism really is. Right. How old are you?
I'm too close to 40. We'll say that.
Okay. So we're similar in age. I'm 43 and you're in your late 30s. So, when you and I were 20 years old, let's say we were both 20 years old 20 years ago, right?
Right.
If you and me, and let's knock out the stereotype for a minute. People are going to go, well, they're going to have all kinds of, so let's just say you and I were dressed the same. We talk the same. We sound the same. Both of us,
right.
we're both going for a job interview. 20 years ago, subconsciously, there would have been a part of me that I just would have assumed I would have gotten the job over you. just would have like it was just, it didn't think about it. It was just assumed.
Right.
I never, there's a part of me that would have, when I'm riding down the street, I would lock my doors if I was drive by somebody that didn't look and sound like me and act like me. It wasn't about how poor I was. I grew up in a trailer park. I grew up poor, but that's not what we're talking about.
Right. Right.
And now the temperature we live in, it's shifting, and a lot of bullshit's got to come with it to make the shift happen. But that's not a necessarily statement today where you and I go to a job. I don't necessarily, think, oh, I'm automatically going to get it now. So there's this part of coming to terms with the times are changing, and the bad person I was, of just how naive I was, and how I would choose to do things the easy way instead of putting in the hard work. Like, I was the type of guy that I would want to take the elevator instead of taking the stairs, type of thing. And never thinking I was going to get caught, or never think, I always would justify why I would do the things that I would do. And it wasn't until prison that things changed for me, because I saw like all the bullshit that I would do, all the conning that I would do, all of the lies and the manipulation I would tell people to get what I would want. I realized that in prison, especially in programs like RDAP, all that bullshit that I would talk about, I realized that most people didn't actually believe me. Even when I was doing it way back when, most people just got sick and tired of trying to help me change. They were just like, whatever, Dan's going to do whatever the fuck he wants to do. I'm not going to waste my time on him. And when I realized that I wasn't as smart as I thought I was, and I was getting called out on my bullshit, something flicked on a switch, and I started realizing that you never know who you're going to learn something from. And when you start judging everything predetermined, and now I deal with a little bit of that on the flip side, because everybody just assumes that I was like this, oh, he must have been some rich, privileged white kid. I was a privileged white kid, but I was never wealthy or anything. Now people see, oh, he's driving around in a BMW. He must have always had money and doesn't know what it's like to struggle. And I don't waste my time trying to correct it, because I realize, there's something going on in their life that's allowing them to use that as an obstacle, not to push further, not to do what they need to do, because it's easier to make an excuse for why you have shortcomings than it is to go, oh, what are they doing that I could do different in my life? So the people that get it. The ones that don't. And I've realized, you can't lead a horse to water. You can't make a drink. We can sit here and throw sayings all day long, but
yeah, for sure.
You're absolutely right, because I was not somebody that would have benefited your life. I would have found what I can take from your life to benefit my own life at your expense. That's the type of person that I was, that I strive not to be any longer.
Right. But just the fact that you can sit here now and acknowledge that is huge, because you don't have to acknowledge that. You don't have to say any of that. You don't have to prove yourself to anybody. But the fact that you are able to sit there and say, hey, this is what I was, this is where I am, this is where I messed up. Like, not even in regards to just maybe who you were as a person or the things that you've done, just the simple fact of people just don't acknowledge their fuck ups, period. Doesn't matter if it's, oh yeah, I moved that from here to here, but you're doing it on a whole entire, this was my life and this is my life now. And you're just so humble about it, right? And I think a lot of people can take from that and should learn from that. Just even in watching your videos, a lot of times you like to say, that people need to own their shit. People need to own their shit, and that's huge in this world, because even though I feel that things are transitioning, and it is not even a race thing or a religion thing or whatever thing, right? So many people are still just hiding behind whatever they can use to try to make someone else seem like the bad person, and not owning their own shit, for like
that victim mentality.
Exactly. And that's more, I don't want to say it's more alive today, but you give more people voices. you see a lot more of it, and so to have someone like you, it is super refreshing to have someone to be like, hey, we all fuck up, and
I appreciate that. It's even on like the religion thing. Like, I was a Democrat my entire life. I didn't vote for Trump the first go round, and I'm not even sure what changed, but I noticed that
we didn't have a good option on the other side.
Granted, there weren't any good options, but when I started to really kind of like do my own research and stop listening to this and ask myself, what was it about it? And when I really looked at the fine tuning things, take away like the fact that he was an idiot and he should never talk out loud, and But some of the other facts were, I'm big on prison reform, and what he did for prison reform was just amazing. And whether he did it to try to get reelected or did it to make himself look good, who cares, right? The pathway to hell is paved with great intentions. So I don't care what people's intentions are as long as they're getting it done. And when I made that choice, everyone's like, "Oh, how can you flip flop like that?" And that's like, that's the problem is you guys are treating political ideas the same way as you would treat like your football team. Like you're a diehard Buffalo Bills fan, and no matter what, you're not going to swap that team. You're allowed to change our minds, and you shouldn't feel like you're wrong. And nobody wants to admit that they're wrong or they could have been wrong. And they don't want to change their viewpoint, because then it's like admitting that they were wrong. And that's just really hard for a lot of us to do, including myself. But once I started doing it more and more and doing things that were slightly uncomfortable, putting myself in intentionally uncomfortable situations, it became less and less uncomfortable, and it became okay to challenge somebody. And if I'm saying something out of a genuine perspective, I'm not really concerned how it's going to make you feel. I don't really care, because I'm not doing it to hurt your feelings. If it does hurt your feelings, you allowed that to happen. I didn't put my hands on you. I didn't, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Right. All these childhood things, they circle back, and it's allowed me to find like something to center on. And if I use that as my beacon of what I'm doing, I don't really change too much. I just get more and more comfortable being okay with not pleasing everybody, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a perfect sense, right? I think you do tend to lose yourself a little bit when you do try to please everyone, right? No, and that's great. And man, you hit the nail on the head. You think a lot like I do, and I think that's a lot of the reason why I enjoy your videos. And it makes, I know we said Jenna
Jenna Ryan.
So what really pushed me, I mean, normally I would just consume your videos. I would just watch them. I wouldn't necessarily, I'm not a big interactor for the most part. I mean, I have the podcast here and whatever, but I just generally like to see what's on people's minds, and I like to hear what they have to say and watch their videos, and I get to reflect on that. And I was scrolling through some news and stuff, and I live in Texas. I live in Houston, right? So I get fed a lot more Texas stuff than generally anything. And I saw an article that had come up about Jenna, and Jenna was just going off this, that, and the other, oh, woe is me, just doing regular Jenna shit. And then she was talking to the person that was writing the article was talking about, and Jenna's bashing Dan and, bashing this. I said, Dan. Well, I know, I watch his videos. Like, let me read more about this. Let me go further in this. And just the things that she was saying and the stuff that she was doing. And I'm just like, I have to reach out to this guy, because I only know him from the videos, and the guy in the videos, this is not who she's portraying this person out to be. And like, to me, that's not okay. And, she has a stupid amount of support in Texas. And I guess that's what frustrates me about Texas. It's just a whole nother world, man. It's just a whole nother world down here. And the fact that there are just so many people in Texas that give her life is just irritating. And it drowns out the good people that are out there, the people like you, the people like Holly, and to not be able to have that other side of the story, or have the other side of the story be seen, at least from a local Texas perspective, is and was unacceptable for me, and so I reach out, and that's why I'm glad to even have you here, man. I don't want to spend too much time on her, but even in some of those videos, I think that you did probably 2 or 3 videos. I want to say, like a 40-minute one, and then there was like a quick, like the right before she was going to surrender before Christmas, right. And then you had the one where she was already in and whatever. But I think there was like one more. But even in those, like, as you're putting that out there, and you have this person who clearly is dragging your name through the mud, right? And saying these terrible things about you, and you still, like, you could have been a complete fucking asshole. You could have fucking just shredded her shit, right? And you didn't. You were still humble about it. You were still, hey, you know,
You
even
know,
acknowledging what she did. Like, you don't, yeah, you don't necessarily feel it was the worst thing ever. Like, you even still acknowledge that, right? Like,
yeah,
and
she,
still give her props.
and
I
for
don't know,
people
man.
that don't know, who Jenna, I mean, I'm sure everybody in Texas knows, but
Oh
people that don't
yeah,
know
for
who Jenna
sure.
Ryan was, she was one of the women that stormed the Capitol during the insurrection. Almost 2 years, well, a year and a half ago or whatever now.
Yeah, yeah,
And she got, she got charged. It was a misdemeanor trespassing charge. It wasn't like the end of the world. But her thing is she kept going on the media and saying how it was unfair. And she was making crazy statements like she's not going to do any jail time because she's white, blonde, and has a good job, and just things that, whether you think that way or not, you're putting this out into a world where it's going to attract, some kind of a response. And eventually you put so much pressure on the system that they had to put her in prison. But the big thing is first off, if I were to come into your house uninvited and I'm like, I was only there for 60 seconds, then I left, it's no big deal. It's like, dude, I broke the law. It's
yeah,
simple. It's
yeah.
not like she accidentally stepped in. And her inability to take any responsibility for her actions, no matter how minor or severe that they were, her entire role was is she's a martyr. They're just out to get her because she's great for story. The only reason she was good for entertainment was because of the crazy shit that would come out of her mouth. Just she's like watching a train wreck. None of these channels and people that are supporting her, other than like the other thinkers like her, but any media
Yeah,
outlet that's supporting her is purely for the smut and the trash and the craziness behind it. And she doesn't get that. Um, when she reached out to me for help, this is before I knew how her thinking was. When we were
right.
talking about it, her taking accountability, what she could have done different. We had planned this interview we were going to do, and I had dumped quite a bit of money into advertising for it. We had a day set, and the day I was either the night before or the morning of. She sends me a text. She's like, "Yeah, I can't do this. I changed my mind." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she just wouldn't really give me a reason. So when it came out to it, she wasn't willing to take any responsibility. So when I made a video about, Jenna Ryan is not willing to take any responsibility, this is what she did. She was supposed to go into prison after Christmas, and she had decided to self-surrender a couple of days before because she wanted to get it over with. But she had told me in many emails that she was going to have all these book deals and this and that. So it was clear to me that she wanted to be able to discuss in her books about how hard it was being in prison during Christmas.
Yeah,
And this
yeah,
is more for publicity. And when she came out of prison talking about how it was like a third world country and it was torture and this and that, she was at a fucking women's prison camp, one of the best ones. She wasn't mistreated. She wasn't tortured. She wasn't given as much phone time as she would have liked because of the pandemic. And she wasn't eating the best of the food because of the pandemic. Other than that, she dealt with the same thing that every single person in prison deals with as a nonviolent first-time offender. But when she started complaining about how it was torture in third world country, there are people that are in prison that are really being tortured, that are being raped, that are being beaten, that are being shanked, that are being extorted. And when she says this, it takes so much away from what somebody is actually dealing with, minimizing all of their struggles and making it sound like she's this great person for talking about it, when really her only purpose is to sell a book. She does not give a shit about her beliefs. She does not give a shit about anybody in prison. She only gives a shit about herself. So it makes her a really bad person in the core. And she learned nothing from any of this. And I mean, maybe she's got mental health issues and maybe she should get that looked into. I don't know. But the Jenna Ryan train, it will stop at some point because it's not based on anything that can create longevity for her. Her
right.
name it's old news. It's she just likes to hear herself talk. And that's why I made these videos about her, because I heard to mislead where all of these other people are thinking they're going to deal with. She's terrifying people for no reason.
No, for sure, and 100%, and that was one of the things I think that they had quoted you on in the article too. Basically saying that what she was doing was offensive to the people that are actually really dealing with real things. And again, another like libel, right? Just to show that, dude, here's a guy that actually gives a shit and is telling it like it is, right? I would like to say, is there some mental health things going on? I don't know, probably, but you know, this is gonna sound bad. I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this too. She is exactly like everybody else in the city she's from. So I don't, if that tells you anything, you know, and
Yeah,
it's,
crazy.
yeah, crazy. You know, it's interesting. There's a lot of people that are here. I mean, even from the Houston area. I mean, where I'm in the Houston area, and she's more towards the Dallas area. The two cities don't even like each other because it's like Texas is a whole other world. Dallas is a whole other world outside of that, you know, and that area surrounding. There's a
I think
yeah,
even Donald Trump wouldn't mind losing Jenna Ryan's vote in the future.
yeah.
Just
At
saying.
this
I don't even
point,
think he's like, yeah, I hope this woman votes for me. He's like, God,
yeah, no,
don't associate.
she's a
He doesn't even
pain,
want to be associated to her, and you know that's fucked up.
and it's sad because she's not going anywhere in the Texas world anytime soon.
No.
Unfortunately, though, man. But going back to that comment that you had said, you know, about what everybody else is going through, and I know that you, for the most part, like where would you say your clientele or your client base now lies? Is it more white collar? Is it more just general, you know, advisory? Is it, I mean, what do you see, or the types of people that are coming to you now for?
Um, I would say it's about if I had to give it a percentage, I would say 60 to 65% white collar. When I say white collar, we'll go with like the high end white collar, like wire fraud, things of that nature, where it's we're talking, millions and millions and millions of dollars that, it's and there's always the real story and what the government posts, but it's usually
Right,
where,
right,
embezzling, things of that nature. And then the rest of it, the most of it anyway, would be first time nonviolent offenses from your regular average guy that was got caught. He's been selling maybe coke his entire life, or maybe it was even heroin or pills.
right.
But there's no guns involved. There's no violence. He doesn't have a huge past. So it's really his first time getting in trouble. Never been through this process before, and has the same fears, the same anxiety as the white collar guy does, because he's still going to be going pretty much to a nonviolent first time offender prison situation. He's out, what he says to his family, how his kids, it's
Yeah.
the dynamic is not that different. And that's why some of the prison consultants that are in the industry, they really cater and focus on white collar only, because if they're focusing on white collar only, they charge up their fees. And there's some guys out there that will charge 15, 20, 30 grand for the same services that I'm providing. The problem is it's cutting the legs off of the regular average guy that needs the same type of help, because he's also thinking about committing suicide and also thinking about going on the run, because he has no idea what prison really is like for somebody that's nonviolent. The thought of prison, for at least for me and most of the people I deal with, was far worse than the actual prison situation itself.
Right,
Most
right.
people will imagine prison. If anybody spent a night in a county jail, or a drunk tank, or a week in a county jail, they think that the prison experience is going to be like that. And it
Yeah,
was nothing like that. I mean, it was open. There was no jail cells. There was flat screen TVs. And it wasn't just because it was the feds. The
right,
feds,
right.
federal prison has penitentiaries, and it has high security prisons where you don't have that type of luxury, where it is beatings and shanks and extortion. So that does go on in the feds, but for people that are nonviolent, that's just not where they're going. Everyone thinks like Martha Stewart goes to a special prison. Nope. Your girlfriend, my girlfriend, would go to the same place Martha Stewart went to if they committed a nonviolent first time offender crime. It's not like they have
Yeah,
these special cushy prisons for rich people.
yeah.
It's a
So
myth.
that leads me to, and maybe you can tell me to go fuck off. I'm getting too far into your finances or whatever the situation is. But so I do wonder about that when you're dealing with white collar crime, and generally, anybody that's watched any type of Nat Geo, Vice, I mean, you see white collar crime all the time, right? And it's usually a lot of like the wire frauds, the high dollar things, like whatever. I've always been curious. So for someone like yourself, who has these clients, they're getting busted for whatever the situation, if it's wire fraud, if it's embezzling, if it's racketeering, whatever the situation may be. How does that, I guess, how does that work for you, like financially, right? So like if you're taking on a clientele that's busted for, I don't know, siphoning money off of something or stealing money from somebody, like it's still their money that pays you, right? Like how does that work? Does that put you at risk yourself by, does that make sense, right? Like this guy's getting busted for stealing $100 million and he's paying you with some of that $100 million. Like how does that
No, because usually it's no different than like if they're going to hire an attorney to help defend them. When you hire, like let's say you were, they blamed you for selling drugs to all of these people, and all these people came forward and said that they sold drugs to you. You're going to hire your attorney, or you're going to be appointed an attorney depending on your financial situation. And if the government starts hiring witnesses to testify against you, you have the right to hire professional help and mitigating tactics to better prepare you. So our job, we have a lot of people like, well, am I going to get in trouble for hiring you? It's like, no, do it through your attorney. If you're worried about it, have your attorney hire us. But it's not just the white collar guys that are hiring us. It's also the people that are making $30,000-$40,000 a year that are hiring us as well. Because what everybody starts to learn is your attorneys only handle so much. Your attorneys help with your plea deal. Your attorneys will help with your discovery. They kind of hold your hand through that part of it. But then everything else you're going to do, like what kind of letter you're going to write to the judge, what type of substance abuse programs you're getting yourself involved in right now, what you're telling your kids, what programs you might qualify for when you get into prison that you have to start focusing on before you go in order to even have a chance to qualify for them. There's something called a pre-sentence interview, which takes place in most cases before you go to prison. It's right after you take a plea deal, and they start asking you questions. And this could be months and months and months after you've actually been originally arrested. And they might say, hey, do you have a drug problem? And you're like, no, you're freaking out. And you start saying, no, I have no drug problems. I don't drink alcohol ever, because you think somehow that can get you in more trouble. And if your attorney had properly prepared you, you would have said, hey, make sure when you do your pre-sentence interview, if you were smoking weed, even if it was on the weekends, even if you're drinking on the weekends, even if you were recreationally using cocaine on the weekends, make sure you tell them that, because there's programs that you might be able to qualify for. They're not only going to help you get control of your issues, but it could also potentially reduce your sentence by taking these programs. And some people don't qualify for these due to technicality because they freak out and don't mention any of it out of fear, anxiety. Maybe they're just ashamed of what they did and they don't want to talk about it. But because the attorneys don't really know too much about this, or they don't spend time focusing on it, that's where a consultant would come in, because now I can say, hey, look, these are programs that you could qualify for. So yeah, you're looking at 60 months, but if you qualify for this program, you're going to get the help that you need. It can knock a year off here, 6 months off here, and helping them properly mitigate through the process can ultimately minimize not only the amount of time that they're going to spend, but the less likelihood that they're going to recidivate later on. And that's the goal here. It does me no good to help you receive a potentially shorter sentence if you're just going to come back out and start doing the same thing over again. So the majority of our program is an accountability program. We're not going to sit here and let you tell us how it's not your fault and you're blank. It's like, dude, is there anything you could have done different? Knowing what you know now, was there anything you would have done different so you didn't get indicted? Well, I probably wouldn't have taken that bribery check. Okay, let's own that. It's not, maybe you're not happy with the sentence, and it's because you didn't pay attention to the consequences of what you were doing. I ask all my clients, they have children. I'm like, would you ever do anything to hurt your child? Oh, of course not. Well, what do you think you're doing right now? You're potentially going to go to prison. Yeah. Or you'll ask people, who are the victims of your crime? What's a victimless crime? What do you think your wife's going through right now? What do you think your son's going through right now? What do you think, your best friend and your mom and your dad's 85 years old, and you might get sent to prison for the next 6-7 years. There's a chance your dad might be dead when you come home from prison. You don't think that they're victims of the choices that you made? And you'll see these people that were a day ago saying, this isn't fair, all of a sudden own their shit and realize that they put themselves in the doorstep of the government. The government didn't come find them. They presented themselves with the issues that are now have them in trouble. And when people really identify that and they stop focusing on how unfair it is, it allows them to spend their energy on what they can do now to not just get a better sentence, but understand that the best outcome is going to mean no matter what sentence they get, they know that they prepared the best that they could, and they've come to peace with the mistakes that they made. And that's what we really try to get people to focus on throughout the process.
100%, man. And I mean, at the end of the day, what you're doing, again, as I said, I can't stress how awesome it is enough, man, is just getting people to take a more introspective look at themselves, and you're pushing for more than just and whether you're doing it on purpose or not, you're pushing for more than just people having the best outcome of their current situation. You really are pushing to challenge people to change for the better, man. And that is a huge thing. You know, it's not just about let's see what we can do, because you're gonna come in that revolving door, right? And keep coming back. Like you're actually doing the work for these people and helping these people grow to be better. And unfortunately, not everybody is going to follow that, as we know, and you've dealt with in the past. But man, I mean, if these people don't thank you for that, I thank you for what you're doing, because it's work that needs to be done, and there's not a lot of people out there that are doing it. So
Thank you, brother.
yeah, man. Hats off to you, man. I would love to continue to go on and on and on and on, but hopefully, man, next time we'll be able to come back and be able to do this again, because it's been enlightening, and I know for a fact I have people in my head right now that are going to see this, and they're going to have a lot of questions too, man. But I appreciate your time more than anything. Hopefully it was good for you. But before we get out of here, man, go ahead and plug anything you need to plug, man. Where can they find you? Where can they hear you, listen to you, all of it?
Yeah, sure. Biggest platform is on YouTube, just RDAP Dan, RDAPDAN. Website, federalprisontimeconsulting.com, or you can go to rdapdan.com, brings you to the same place. I'm on all kinds of social media. It's all under RDAP Dan, you know, and it's not for everybody, but if you're going through something right now and you feel like you're all alone and you might be in a little bit of trouble, you want to come on, all the videos are free. We have free consultations. You can book a free consultation right off of our website. And usually they last 20, 30 minutes. You might walk away with something that might change the course of the direction you're going in. And my motto has always been, you know, people up and people, communities method, one day at a time. Just take it easy. That's all you can do.
That's awesome, man. RDAP Dan Wise. Thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's going on, guys? Hopefully you enjoyed the show. We appreciate you listening for sure. But we need your help.
Yeah, we need your help. We need you to like, comment, and subscribe so that we can continue to make great content for you guys.
Yeah. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe.
And it's right here on the screen. Everything you need.
Right there. Thank you so much, guys, for listening.
All right, take care.